Hello. Okay. My name is Andrew Cooperstock, and I moved to Boulder 22 years ago. And I've attended services here at Har Hashem off and on over the years. Pre-COVID, for about 5 years, you might have seen me with my dad sitting in the back of the sanctuary back when we were inside at services. Some of you know my husband Bill, who commutes from his position at the University of South Carolina, and he feels a connection with the community here as well. My dad grew up in a kind of shtetl on the west side of St. Paul, Minnesota. He lived with his immigrant parents and grandparents. He received an Orthodox education at the Talmud Torah and gave his bar mitzvah speech in Yiddish as well as English. My mom was from an observant family in North Minneapolis. They say it was a mixed marriage because one from each city, they met across the river and got married. My grandmother, my mom's mom, used to gossip with the other aunties in Yiddish so we kids wouldn't understand. And when we would take my grandmother out to dinner, she'd always ask whether a particular fish on the menu was Jewish. I'm thankful to have recorded interviews with some of my grandparents, and even though they died a long time ago, I can still listen to them now and listen to their stories again from the old country. My mom was an excellent cook, and at every holiday, a dozen or so regulars would convene at my parents' home in West Bloomfield, Michigan, to enjoy her famous chicken soup. When I was in my 30s, I hosted my out-of-town brother for Pesach one year, and I called Mom for the chicken soup recipe, which she relished sharing. She started by saying, "Be sure to get a nice chicken." I don't know what that means especially. I didn't want to eat a nice chicken, and I'm pretty much vegetarian anyway, but the chicken should be 3 to 4 pounds, could be 3.5, could be 4.5, could be. It took her a long time to tell me about the chicken and to make sure that it was nice. She then told me in precise detail about how to add all the other ingredients, including a few secrets. I'll share one secret. It's for her excellent matzo balls. Use a mix. The soup came out great. My brother said, "This is great, but you can't tell Mom that our soup is just as good as hers." Of course it was as good as hers because I followed the instructions, to the letter. So when my mom called excitedly from Michigan at the end of the dinner hour to ask how the soup came out, I told her it was delicious, but not quite as good as yours. We decided, my brother and I, that my mom's soup had a special extra ingredient, her love. I'm thankful to my parents for raising me and my siblings in a Jewish home. We attended religious school in whatever town we were living. We moved a lot. We celebrated bar mitzvahs. We were confirmed. We learned a little Hebrew. I had the chance to make an extended trip to Israel in my late 20s to visit friends and to see the sights. After leaving home and finishing school, I spent much of my early career in smallish towns, mostly in the South, that had virtually no Jewish community. Nevertheless, I continued traditions like lighting candles myself at home, and I would fly to Michigan to be with my parents for as many holidays over the years as I could. At several seders, my parents would set up a laptop at my seat at the dining table so that I could participate from a distance. At that time, I had no idea how that would foreshadow this past couple years. Upon moving to Boulder in 1999, I became very busy with work and travel, and I had little time for attending services regularly, other than at the high holidays and a few other times. I did feel very connected with my parents' congregation in Michigan, however, Temple Shir Shalom, where I still have close friends to this day, but I could only get there infrequently. My parents moved to Boulder in 2014. They had become older and infirmed and needed to be near one of us kids. I immediately sought out advice from Jewish Family Service, and after painstaking research and footwork was able eventually to help build a support network for my parents and our family. My mom died a few years later, after making sure that Dad would be okay, I think, and Dad and I became buddies for the next 5 years, a time which I dearly cherish. During this time, Dad moved way too many times from assisted living to assisted living as he needed more and more care. I knew Dad needed some consistency and a replacement for his beloved Temple Shir Shalom, so I helped him join Har Hashem, a congregation with a similar feel, caring, supportive, traditional yet contemporary, and socially aware. I was able to bring Dad to services every couple weeks. We especially enjoyed the music Shabbats with Holly Zor Zimra, and the congregation made Dad and me feel welcome. Rabbi Green would always make sure to visit with Dad at Oneg's. Trying to hold it together. Dad always left smiling and telling me how much he liked the rabbi and the cantor and how much he'd enjoyed the evening. Although his short-term memory was failing him, he could recite the entire service by heart, and he loved singing along with the familiar tunes he'd sung over a lifetime or learned more recently as a choir member in Michigan. Dad died about a year ago. I'm not sure he really understood the gravity of the pandemic from last year, but he did notice how my almost daily visits to his assisted living in Boulder had moved to just once a week over FaceTime with an occasional in-person patio visit when that was allowed. Such a challenging year, of course, for all of us. Rabbi Green led Dad's funeral with just me and 2 friends in attendance. Yonatan is here. And Holly ran the Zoom, so relatives and friends could observe from out of town. Just last month, Holly and the rabbi returned to the cemetery to lead an unveiling service, this time for family who could finally safely come in to be together in person. As many of you, the isolation and uncertainty of the pandemic last year served to tangibly increase my anxiety to new levels. I could work online, but for long stretches when it was difficult to travel, especially to be with my husband, who lives in South Carolina, as I said, and especially after Dad died, I was at home alone. Fortunately, Har Hashem, as you know, miraculously stepped up, and I felt enormously supported. I remember Rabbi Bronstein's phone calls to check in, the drive-through sukkah. So much online content. I was able to virtually attend multiple services, including Havdalah, every weekend, and to seek out online discussion groups, meditative Shabbats, and group Seders. Although I'd already felt a part of the congregation, I officially joined last fall, and am happy to be able to attend many services now in person. While I'd never lost my own sense of Jewish identity over the years, I became and remain grateful for the feeling of community I've been blessed to receive.